Come with me, toy fans.
When the Star Wars toy line first burst onto the scene in 1978, it was an overwhelming success, and the 3 3/4 inch scale adopted for the action figures quickly became the new industry standard. British toy company Palitoy paid close attention to the changing play patterns of young children, so when sales of their flagship toy line Action Man began falling in 1980, the company decided to shrink Action Man down from the larger 12-inch size to match the scale of Star Wars toys. This new range of products, now branded Action Force, was first released in 1982, and the initial launch featured the 12 best-selling Action Man designs, now produced as 3 3/4 inch scaled action figures with 5 points of articulation. To provide a wider range of products, Palitoy also produced a variety of toy vehicles and a large cardboard playset. The new Action Force range was an instant retail hit, so as Palitoy entered 1983, the company saw an opportunity to diversify the range, and a new storyline, which featured in the Battle Action Force comics, united the range into an ongoing conflict with an enemy team commanded by the evil Baron Ironblood. The Action Force was split into 4 new operational units: Space Force for operations above the Earth's atmosphere, Z Force the conventional land army, Q Force for nautical missions, and the Covert Strike Force, the SAS. In this all-new 5-part series, we're going to take a detailed look at each of these Action Force teams, discuss the designs of all the different toys in the range, and provide some insight into how the original designers developed these products while working for the legendary British toy company Palitoy. Hello Action Force fans, my name is Tony and welcome to part 1 of this special series, and in this first episode we're going to discuss the enemy of Action Force. When Palitoy revamped the Action Force concept in 1983, the company quickly identified the need for an enemy team, so they came up with the idea of Baron Ironblood and his army of Red Shadows. In the Battle Action Force comic, the Baron is described as an evil genius who threatens the world, and his twisted criminal brain dreams of only one thing: world domination. Using powerful and sophisticated weaponry, Ironblood's fanatical followers would gladly die for their master, and together they have vowed to destroy the Action Force. The first wave of toys released by Palitoy in 1983 included the Shadow Track vehicle, the Laser Exterminator, and the Baron Ironblood action figure, along with the Black Major, the Red Shadow Infantry, and the Mouton. So now that you know a little bit more about the enemy of Action Force, let's take a closer look at all the toys in the range. Let's start with the man himself, Baron Ironblood. When Palitoy was redesigning Action Force for 1983, the design department was given very limited funds for new tooling, so the Action Force incarnation of this character, much like the other figures in the range, is a mishmash of previously released figures: German Stormtrooper legs, Scuba Diver torso, Action Force Commander arms, and the head from the Australian Jungle Fighter. This early photograph shows Baron Ironblood during the conceptual design stage, and he is without his helmet, has a green face, and he clearly stole Darth Vader's cape. And I'm very pleased that Palitoy continued to develop this figure before releasing it at retail. Greg Hughes, the designer of the Action Man Space Rangers, drew the original conceptual sketch for Baron Ironblood, and what's really interesting here is that pretty much every single design idea presented by Greg made it into the final product. The figure comes with a Ned Kelly styled helmet manufactured from welded PVC, and is armed with an Uzi submachine gun, the same one that came with the Hasbro released Snake Eyes action figure. In fact, you'll find that the majority of Action Force figures came with weapons originally tooled by Hasbro for their G.I. Joe A Real American Hero toy line. Most of the other enemy team figures came dressed in red, so Greg decided to give the Baron a white scientist's outfit because this colour scheme would distinguish him from the rest of the team. Greg also placed a red and black chevron design on the chest of the uniform to give the figure some colour, and finally he added the Skull and Crossbones logo in the centre of the chest, a logo that was used on all subsequent toy packaging, and one which was also designed by Greg Hughes. Many collectors, myself included, often refer to this team as the Red Shadows, but that isn't quite correct. They were simply the enemy team, and the name Red Shadows was given to their infantry troops. The body for the Red Shadow was taken from the 1982 German Stormtrooper action figure, and Palitoy resculpted the head, giving the Red Shadow a full-face helmet. I believe Palitoy used the German Stormtrooper as the basis for the Red Shadow to give these soldiers a fascist appearance. The figure is dressed in a blood red uniform with black accents and has the skull and crossbones symbol on the front of the helmet. Each Red Shadow trooper is armed with a black bazooka and carries an ammo case. To assist Baron Ironblood in leading this army of brainwashed suicidal fighters, he had a second in command, the Black Major, who is a brilliant military commander and tactician, totally emotionless, and he carries out the Baron's orders without question. The Black Major action figure is a simple recolour of the Action Force Commander mail-away figure, this time moulded in black. The figure has black and white chevrons on each shoulder, and the enemy symbol is worn on the left of his chest, and the Black Major is armed with an AK-47, which was taken from Hasbro's Cobra officer figure. The final single-carded figure released in 1983 is the absolutely bonkers design for the Mouton. The character of Mouton is an almost indestructible death robot, built by the Baron to further his evil aims. And the action figure version of the Mouton is a repaint of 1982's Action Force Deep Sea Diver. All the accessories for this figure attach to his helmet and include a weapon system and radar dish, and translucent red visor complete with crosshairs. The inclusion of Mouton is a real turning point in the history of the Action Force toy line, taking a concept that was mostly realistic and then introducing such an insane figure design was certainly breaking the mould, but in my opinion it was a welcome idea, which helped turn the enemy team into a very memorable range of toys. Now we get to the enemy vehicles, two of which were released in 1983. One was a redesign of an earlier Action Force vehicle and the other was borrowed from Hasbro's G.I. Joe toy line. First up we have the Shadow Track, which was adapted from 1982's AF-5 multi-mission craft. The Shadow Track is an 8-wheeled assault vehicle for the enemy team that features side-mounted rocket heads and twin rear-facing laser cannons. The driver of the Shadow Track is named the Red Vulture, and this is basically a Red Shadow figure that now has black painted on gloves. Red Vulture can drive the Shadow Track either in the prone position, or the vehicle seat can be raised, allowing the driver to sit facing forward. This position also allows for a rear gunner to sit behind the driver. The last enemy team product released by Palitoy in 1983 was the Laser Exterminator, and this particular example was kindly donated to the channel by my good friend George Aitken. The Laser Exterminator is a red recolour of Hasbro's G.I. Joe HAL Laser, and its pilot, Red Laser, is a repaint of the first issue Cobra Commander with swivel arm battle grip. Laser Exterminators aren't too difficult to find on the secondary market. However, adding a good condition Red Laser action figure to your collection will prove challenging. The Laser Exterminator is an enemy artillery piece which is mounted on a tripod base. The main armament can rotate on its pivoting platform, and elevation is achieved via a sturdy rack system. The base is also fitted with 2 wheels so the laser can be towed into battle. Red Laser sits in a side-mounted gunner's chair that is equipped with a computer control panel, and with him in command, the Laser Exterminator is the most deadly weapon in Baron Ironblood's arsenal. The 1983 Action Force range was another huge success for Palitoy, and children were captivated by this new storyline in the Battle Action Force comics. So as the company entered 1984, they continued to introduce new products, and in my opinion, achieved some of the best design work they had ever attempted. For 1984, let's start by discussing the toy designs that were borrowed from Hasbro's G.I. Joe range, and first up we have the Hyena, a recolour of the Cobra Hiss tank. I recently restored this particular toy and you can check out that video by clicking the link in the description below. The Hyena is a fairly simple toy and is intended to represent a track-driven tank with an enclosed driver's cockpit and a swivelling laser turret. The most interesting thing about the Hyena is the driver, Red Jackal, a Palitoy repaint of Destro, and just like the Laser Exterminator, this vehicle is relatively easy to acquire, but the action figure isn't. The second toy borrowed from Hasbro is the Escape Armor, which included a Red Shadow action figure, and this product was adapted from the Cobra Snake Battle Armor set. The Escape Armor is the one toy that's missing from my collection, but they are quite rare and sell for big bucks. And I'm not going to fork out several $100s for a toy that doesn't actually appeal to me very much. In addition to the toys that Palitoy adapted from Hasbro designs, they also introduced 3 new figures and 1 legendary vehicle. The Robo-Skull is far and away my favourite toy from the entire Action Force range, and it was masterfully realised by Palitoy designer Bob Breakin. I have already discussed this toy in great detail in another YouTube video, so rather than repeat myself, I highly recommend that you check out that video if you haven't already done so. You can find a link to the video in the description below. The Robo-Skull was advertised as the Baron's ultimate weapon, and it was piloted by Red Wolf, another action figure that was newly designed for 1984. When Bob first designed this toy, he originally intended for it to be piloted by an action figure that eventually became known as Skeletron, and this character would end up as the free mail-away figure for 1984. a figure that children could add to their enemy forces by collecting 5 medals that were printed on the reverse side of the action figure card backs. The final figure in the range was also designed by Palitoy legend Bob Breakin, and he's incredibly proud of this creation, and so he should be. The Kraken is a mutated cross between a human, a lizard and a fish, but before developing this figure, Bob had a different idea that was rejected by Palitoy's marketing department. Bob thought that the enemy team needed another position of command, although he jokes that he doesn't know what the Black Major would think of it. Behold this never before seen image of a proposed Red Shadow officer, a figure that would have taken the fascist uniformity of the enemy team to a whole other level, but after marketing turned down the idea, Bob began work on the Kraken. On the original concept sketch for Kraken, Bob notes that the creature was spawned in Baron Ironblood's secret laboratories, but when this character was introduced in the Battle Action Force comics, the writers changed the backstory, with Kraken being found frozen in ice near the North Pole. The Kraken action figure wears battle armour designed in the traditional blood red colour, with the skull and crossbones symbol emblazoned across the chest. Combining the Kraken's green scaled skin with the red and black armour really makes him stand out from the rest of the enemy characters, and makes for an incredibly striking action figure that looks wonderful when displayed. The Kraken also carries a net for capturing members of the Q-Force and is armed with a tri-phaser pistol that was influenced by Neptune's trident. In 1985, Action Force as I knew it had ended, and this was due to the fact that the Palitoy design department was closed in 1984 and the company was no longer developing new products in the UK. The 1985 Action Force range saw the introduction of multiple Hasbro-designed G.I. Joe toys, and in the comic mythology, Baron Ironblood morphed into Cobra Commander, with the storyline rapidly changing direction in order to account for all the new products appearing in toy shops. The new enemy of the Action Force was now the terrorist organisation Cobra, but 2 of the Baron's original vehicles remained in the toy line. The Hyena continued to be sold, but this time with additional stickers, and a new driver in the form of Hasbro's Hiss Tank driver. The other vehicle to remain in the range was Robo-Skull, also adorned with extra stickers, and this vehicle was now piloted by Wild Weasel. The enemy team created for Action Force features some truly inventive toy designs, and the range is really enjoyable to collect. Later in my childhood, when I began playing with Action Force International Heroes, and even later still G.I. Joe, I would always return to Baron Ironblood and the Red Shadows, as they constituted a fantastic alternate adversary for the Joes and Action Force to do battle with. Many of Palitoy's designers also agree that the enemy team was the most fun team to develop because they could really let their imaginations run wild, creating bizarre creatures and fantastical flying machines. The Baron and his army of Red Shadows are truly iconic and make for a formidable enemy, and my childhood memories of their battles with Action Force will live on for many years to come. The combined Action Force enemy team is a wonderful range of toys, and we really hope you enjoy this video because we had a lot of fun making it. Now which team will we discuss in part 2? Well, stay tuned to Analog Toys to find out.